speak German well enough to call in the 17th Panzer Division headquarters to surrender. What? Call in the headquarters of the 17th Panzer Division to surrender? Reflexively I said, yes, I can. In truth, I did not speak German very well. I had studied scientific German, which has a completely different vocabulary from literary German, but I did know something about sentence structure, and I did know a few other words not scientific. So I said yes. Immediately I had some misgivings, since I would not sound like a very educated person speaking a language that I had not mastered. But at the same time, I did not regret. How many times in your lifetime do you get an opportunity to take a surrender of the most fearsome army in the world? You don't have to debate that very long. Yes, I can. And they told me, get off. I jumped off the tank. They gave me a shortwave radio and told me the name of the two intersecting highways where we were, and they said, you call in the headquarters company of the 17th Panzer Division, tell them to come here and surrender. Shit! What an opportunity! Unbelievable, but true. So I started. I addressed them respectfully, but not totally. And I told them where we were, and I told them, come in with all your hatches open, all heads out, sticking out of the tank, all machine guns pointing up, all 88s pointing up, all sidearms out of the holster, all holster flaps loose. I gave them a whole set of instructions. I don't even remember them all now, but it was whatever popped into my mind. And I got no comment back from the radio, so I didn't know how much they understood of my poor German, how much went over their head. But in about 10 minutes, that little time, it became clear they had indeed understood me, and here came toward me Tiger tanks. I should have been overcome with fear, but their guns were all up, and their hatches were all open, their heads were all sticking out. It was not a fearsome machine, it was a beautiful machine. In they came. We welcomed them, of course. They had with them people who spoke English much better than I spoke German. So they took my place as interpreter, and my duty for the day was done. And I had to admit that this was a day like no other in my life. And I was leaving when they called to me, here, you, come back here a minute. Take this man somewhere till we're finished. They were referring to the general's chauffeur. Okay. It was a hot day. Up on the hill were a few trees and some shade. So I said to him, up the hill. The man was terrified. He was pale and he was trembling. I found out later why. He didn't understand any English. He thought I had been told, execute this man, which I had no intention of doing. I took him up to the shade tree and I said, sit down. And he turned to me in disbelief and said, sit? Yeah, sit. I sat down and he sat down, And he looked very puzzled. He was puzzled because he'd never heard of executing a man in the sitting position. When he found out that I had not any intention of executing him, but was merely holding him until they should call him again back down to the headquarter tent, he was greatly relieved, understandably. His uniform was a sight to behold. His leggings were so highly polished, they were like mirrors. His buttons were so highly polished, they looked like new gold buttons. Everything about his uniform was absolutely stunning, fit for a chauffeur of a general. We engaged in some conversation for a little while, and I found that his attitudes toward life and death and war were not diametrically opposed to mine, but were rather similar in many ways. And after a while he loosened up, and we became more talkative, and he asked me, "Do I dare ask you for a favor?" And I said, "I don't know, it depends on what the favor is." He said, "May I take my shoes off?" I said, "You can take off anything you want as far as I'm concerned." He did take off his shoes. His feet were wrapped in newspapers and they were bleeding. I said to him, "Why don't you wear socks?" And he said, "I haven't had any socks for many weeks now. Our supplies have been exceedingly inadequate." So he had bleeding feet wrapped in newspapers. He told me other things about the hardships that they had endured. While maintaining the appearance of being the victors, they realized that they were losing and losing badly. In fact, during late phases of the war, I remember one day when we overran a rear echelon unit of the German army. They thought they were in the rear echelon and we overran them. They were in the rear echelon. We had already annihilated all the forward troops. We were moving at unimaginable speed, and indeed that speed saved many lives on both sides. But I'm thinking about our side. So yes, the war did end finally. We got an unconditional surrender. Unconditional. That's not common in history of wars. But that's what we got. That meant that we will specify the terms. You will have no input. This again is a rare opportunity, for that country had been promoting social activities that violated every law of God and man. And we were